I didn't grow up in the faith. I discovered it later when I was in college. And so I wasn't familiar with the routines and the rituals or the language of our faith. And one of the things that struck me early on was how Christians love talking about heaven. It was odd to me. I really never thought about heaven. I thought about galaxies and universes and multiple dimensions, but I never thought about heaven. And it seemed like it was a really important thing because even early on they would say things to me before I became a person of faith. If you die tonight, do you know for certain you're going to heaven? And I thought, wow, I've never even thought about that. I just assumed it would be okay. And they were letting me know it was not. And they seemed to be really fixated on this place. And then I realized that a lot of the songs were written around heaven. And in fact, my brother, who was an atheist, who became a person of faith right before I did, somehow missed the conversation about heaven, and 2 years later gave me a call, and he said, Erwin, did you know there was a heaven? And I said, yeah, I picked that up early. And he said, I didn't know there was a heaven. I didn't know there was an afterlife. This is like a value added. I gave my life to Jesus not even knowing there was a heaven. And you see, I think in some strange way, my brother got it right. He actually came to Jesus, not for what would happen in the afterlife, but what God could do for him, in him, through him, in the here and now. And I understand that our faith comes out of slavery. It comes out of bondage. It comes out of those who lived in desperate situations. And so you have so many songs that are written about a place that we've never been to. A place where there's no suffering and no sorrow. A place where there are no tears. A place where there's only freedom and love and celebration and joy. Even the Negro spirituals that talk so much about heaven, you would expect that in a world where slavery was all they knew and freedom was only an idea. But in the mix of that, we forgot something that was so important. That there's this thing called history that is not incidental or outside of God, but that God is the creator of human history. And that he created time, and that for him, the here and the now is as important as the then and the there. There's a reason why we're here. We're here to affect the here. And we're here now to affect the now. And we can just spend our whole lives looking backwards with regret and wishing we were living in the past, or sitting around daydreaming, imagining a future that we will never see, or realize that we have this moment to do something so significant and so powerful that it could literally break from the past and create in the future. I love the possibility that God gives us as a people to be his instruments in the here and now to do something that would literally transform the human condition and rewrite the course of human history. That's why I love people like David, or we know him as King David. Because King David wasn't always King David. King David was also shepherd boy David, and he was cheese delivery boy David, and he was giant killer David, and he was musician, harp player David. He was DJ David. He was a David of all kinds. But he was living in a moment in between knowing he was going to be king and becoming king. Being anointed and appointed king and actually becoming the king. Having words spoken over him by a prophet saying, you are the king, and yet he wasn't the king, and he still waited to be king. Have you ever felt there was something inside of you waiting to be born, a destiny waiting to be realized, a future waiting to be stepped into, that there was something inside of you that was supposed to happen, a destiny that you were created for, but you were always living in this in-between state? You couldn't realize it, you couldn't step into it. See, what we so oftentimes miss is that the deepest aspect of our life, that part of us that is most significant, that part of us that will have its greatest success can never be accomplished or experienced alone. We tend to heroize individuals. And so we see one person, whether it's LeBron James, or Kobe Bryant, or whoever it may be. We tend to heroize one person and go, that's the person, that's the reason we won, and then he's the reason we lost. But the reality is that what we oftentimes attribute to an individual is what a team has accomplished. What we attribute to one hero is what a tribe has brought into reality. And there was a moment in David's life when he was becoming king, and tribes were coming to him, joining forces with him, because he would never become king without them. And from all these tribes, multitudes came. 50,000 from one tribe, 20,000 from another, 30,000 from another, 5,000 from another. And they all came together with the unique skills, unique talent, unique abilities, unique contribution. And they came together to become a force that could not be reckoned with. In 1 Chronicles chapter 12, we find the characteristics of this kind of tribe that God uses to create a new and extraordinary future. These were the men who came to David at Ziklag. While he was banished from the presence of Saul, son of Kish, they were among the warriors who helped him in battle. They were armed with bows and were able to shoot arrows or sling stones, right-handed or left-handed. They were relatives of Saul from the tribe of Benjamin. And then in verse 8 it says, some Gadites defected to David at his stronghold in the wilderness. They were brave warriors, ready for battle, and able to handle the shield and the spear. Their faces were like the faces of lions, and they were as swift as gazelles in the mountains. Now, why so much detail? Except that he's letting us know that there was a certain kind of warrior that joined David that was necessary for David's success. And these soldiers had these two dominant characteristics. They were agile and they were fearless. They were fast and furious. That would make a great series. They were armed with bows and able to shoot arrows or to sling stones, right-handed or left-handed. They could shoot a layup with either hand. They were relatives of Saul, but they came and joined David. And then they were brave warriors, ready for battle, able to handle a shield and spear. They could work offense and defense. Their faces were the faces of lions. I love that. And as swift as gazelles in the mountains. See, I think what most of us want is we want a predictable life that's comfortable and safe so that we can look more awesome than we actually are. Because it is easy to look great when life is easy. I love playing ping pong, and because, it's my cardio. I love playing ping pong, and whenever someone usually comes to play ping pong with me, I'll always play with my left hand. Now, I learned how to play left-handed because I used to play with David Arcos, and he was left-handed, and I realized he never played guys who are left-handed, so it was a disadvantage for me to play a left-handed guy, but it would be even more of a disadvantage for him, so I started playing left-handed. And I got better and better, and I learned how to play left-handed, and now whenever I play someone, I always play left-handed. And I usually win for quite a long time, and they finally achieve that pinnacle moment of victory. I say, but I know something you don't know. And then I switch over to my other hand. Yeah, some of you will understand that if you've seen The Princess Bride. Because there's nothing more dangerous than a man who can use a sword with his left hand and his right. They were carrying these unique characteristics. They were described by these unique characteristics. They had faces like lions. See, I know there might have been some physical resemblance there. Because I don't know if you've seen Chad Becker. He's like our German. He's got that deep, long, red, fiery beard that he shaved down, probably because his wife wouldn't kiss him. But it was a powerful man beard. It was a Viking beard. I was always proud walking with you. I felt more like a man when I had you with me. I would say, this is Chad. Or Emerson had kind of like that beard, and kind of the face of the lion beard with the hipster touch to it. And Joe Smith had that beard saying, I want to be a beard, I want to be a beard, and I'm going to be a beard one day. And I love that. I love that you don't give up, that you say, I'm going to be a bearded man. But that's okay, because I have so much Spanish in me that I can't grow a beard, so I always do this, I just got out of bed, but I forgot to shave thing. But some people don't need a beard to have a face that looks like a lion. I always wondered why I could walk the streets all over the world, in Damascus, in Rio de Janeiro, whether I was in Istanbul or Islamabad, and no one would ever mug me. And I realized, oh, I look like the mugger, and that's why they leave me alone. But the description here is that they had the faces of lions, and outside or beyond how they looked, what it means is that they were ferocious, that they were courageous, that they expressed a bravery that was undeniable. They had the faces of lions, and so when they went to war, their enemies were shaking just at the look of them. But they were also as swift as gazelles on the mountains. And so they were agile, they were flexible, they were mobile. They knew how to adjust and adapt. And these are the most dangerous kind of warriors that have the faces of lions and are swift as gazelles. See, one of the great challenges when we move together as a tribe is how many people would love to have a predictable life. You ever noticed how predictable churches become? Have you ever noticed that churches so oftentimes become the most predictable, stable, comfortable places in the world? It's kind of odd in a lot of ways that churches grow so well in the suburbs. They grow really well in the suburbs where the world is predictable, where the world is standardized, when there are families, where everything is settled, and they seem to grow really, really well there. And they don't really do that well in the unpredictable spaces of the urban world, of the cosmopolitan world, of places like LA and San Francisco and Tokyo and Berlin. The more destabilizing the world is, the less the church seems to be comfortable there. And there's something wrong there because you cannot go to war if you want to live in a safe world. You cannot change the world if you want to live in a comfortable space. You have to learn how to be agile and fearless, how to be fast and flexible and furious. Some of you may not know this, but Mosaic has been all over the city. We've had so many locations, I don't even know how many anymore. We've been everywhere. We've been to ugly high schools. We were at a senior adult center where the senior adults hated us. I don't know why they were upset they couldn't hear us. And we've been at so many nightclubs. We were at the nightclub that Prince started. I mean, I kept changing names every time the city would shut it down. We were once on the wrong side of the railroad tracks. We'd just say, go over the railroad tracks, and you'll see the sign that says, nude, nude, nude. Turn right, and you'll find Mosaic, Mosaic, Mosaic. There we are. And we've been all over the city. And it's been frustrating. In fact, people have left over the years saying, we just need some place where we know where church is. Okay, so sometimes we didn't communicate well. I had people tell me, we missed the week. You were gone. We spent 6 months looking for Mosaic. I'm so grateful for the internet. All you have to do now is just check the website if you can't find us. But Mosaic has always been fluid. We've always been flexible. You know why? Because we've always been committed to Los Angeles. And one of the great challenges, and you may not know this, is we're going to lose the building. Because we thought we were going to lose it in December. They're going to tear it down and put up apartments that you can't afford. And they just let us know, well, now we can be here till March. And so somewhere around December or March, we're not going to have a place to go. And people keep asking me, where are we going? And I keep telling them, I don't know. And they said, no, you really do know, don't you? And I said, no, I don't know where we're going. No, just tell me. And I said, if I knew, I would tell you. I'm not holding anything back. I have no idea where we're going. We're going to be agile and fearless. But then I get all kinds of recommendations, and I want to tell you where we're not going. See, it's easier for me to tell you where we're not going than for me to tell you where we're going. Just like, are you single? See, you may not know who you're marrying, but you do know who you're not marrying, right? See, that's very clear. It's always easier to narrow it down that way. Nope. Not having it. Not that desperate yet. And, okay. Come on, don't tell me you don't think like that, talk like that. It's okay. He's going to look better later. Let me tell you where we're not going. And these are places I love and appreciate, but we're not going to Orange County. See, we're not going to OC, okay? Now, I was telling you, if you're from the OC, we're so glad you're here. I mean, it's important that you visit civilization on occasion and come here and be here with us. Because all it takes is 45 minutes to travel from the past into the future, and you need to be here. but we're not going to Orange County. There are huge churches in Orange County, massive ones, really super gifted pastors. They don't need me. They don't need us. They have it all going, and they have an ocean. I mean, a really beautiful one. Laguna, Newport. I mean, if you can't figure out there's a God there, I don't know what can help you. It's not going to happen, right? And it'd be easier for us to move to Orange County, by the way. So much land, so many warehouses, so much space. And they like churches there. They like Christians. They like Republicans. They like families down there. They like all the things that make it easier to do church. But we're not going to Orange County. We're not going to Riverside. Or we're not going to east. We're not going that way. Wherever that way is. We're not going to the desert without an ocean. We're not going to Inland Empire. And by the way, there are huge churches over there. Huge churches like malls over there. Massive. So many people over there that believe in Jesus. They believe in God. They believe in the Bible. They're there. And they don't even like LA, but they're there. We're not going there. And I know this is going to be hard for some of you, but we're not going to the valley. Thank you. All right, we're not going to the valley, see? And now I know that a lot of you drive down from the valley because you want to live here, you just can't afford to live here, okay? I know you're paying rent up there, but your heart is here. I know that's why you're here. This is the way you can claim it. I'm in Hollywood on Sundays. But we're not going to the valley. And it would be so much and easier to go to Hollywood, to the valley, because there are huge churches there. Aaron and I drove up there. It was amazing. We saw this church. It was just massive. Their courtyard is bigger than anything I've ever seen. It's just humongous. And in fact, we're driving up there, and I go, wow, look at this. I go, what is this? He goes, it's a suburb, Dad. And then he goes, I'll bet you there, what was it, pizza places? You go, I'll bet you there's, he goes, I'll bet you there's like California pizza. And boom, there it was. Before he could even finish the sentence. And let me tell you, they got it covered. There are great churches there. See, we're not going north. We're not going south. We're not going east. And you really can't go west. You die. It's an ocean. See, we're going to be somewhere here in the heart of Los Angeles, in the middle of Hollywood. That's where we're going to be. But to be here, we're going to have to be agile. We're going to have to be flexible. We're going to be humble and adaptable. We're going to have to be open and responsive, and we're going to have to be fearless. Because it takes more courage to be in a place that's unpredictable, more courage to be in a place where you're not oftentimes wanted. Let me tell you, there's so many rules, so many laws, so many regulations that keep us from being in the city. And we're going to be here. Because we're going to have the faces of lions and the feet of gazelles. And I love the fact that so many of my friends who don't believe in God want us to be here. They just keep making sure, you're not leaving Hollywood, right? No. That's right, because we need a Mosaic here. They need a church they never go to hear a message they never hear about a God they do not believe in, and they want us here. And we need to be agile and courageous, because when we decide to step into the future, we have chosen a life of risk and sacrifice. It's an adventure, but it's so much more. And I'm reminded all the time why I'm here, of why this city matters so much to me. I was sharing with some of you last week that I've had an ear infection for almost a month now. I mean, I cannot hear out of my right ear, and it's just been brutal. And it works okay when someone's trying to tell me something I don't want to hear, but other than that, it's not that helpful. And one day last week, I thought, I have some free time. I have a morning. I have an open morning, no meetings. It was incredible. So I got in my car, and I started going west. I didn't know where I was going. You ever do that? Just get in your car and drive? And I just got in my car, started going west, and I thought, you know, I'll go get some coffee. And then I said, no, I'm not going to get some coffee right now. And then I thought, I'm going to go to one of these stores and just kind of look at design that kind of inspires me, and I love fashion. And I stopped outside of a store. I thought, I'm not going to do that. So I just kept driving, and I thought, I should probably go to the hospital. I have this really terrible ear infection. I should probably go to the emergency room. I don't want to lose my hearing. And so I had a little extra time. So Hank told me about this place where they have like this emergency executive ER thing. So I went toward Beverly Hills and realized it was just around the corner. I pulled in, couldn't find a parking space, but kept driving down the street and finally found a place, pulled over, parked my car, and went up and walked to this emergency ER. And when I went inside, and if you don't know me very well, I am actually a reluctant extrovert. I'm actually an incredibly introverted person. I'm socially awkward and intensely shy, which is the paradox of what I do. And so I have to have like my breathers. I have to have my moments where I can just be just me, just incredibly introverted. And so I walk into this ER and I sign in and I do what I do. This is what's natural for me when no one's watching me. I go to the chair in the furthest corner away from all humanity. And so I literally found the chair in the corner away from all the people. And I sat down there with a little bottle of water they gave me because they're high end. And so I sat down with a little bottle of water and my phone. I pulled out my Office and you know, your iPhone's way of saying to the world, I'm not here and now. And all of a sudden, I get this text from Jamar. He invades my privacy. And I don't know if you know Jamar. He's over here. And Jamar says in bold letters, you cannot tell her I'm sending you this text. Don't begin a text like that. And he said, I have a friend who's there, and she's an atheist, and she recognizes you. She took a photograph of me sitting in the corner, sent it to Jamar, and said, is that Erwin McManus? Man, there's just nowhere to hide. And then he says, she's the blonde. I was in Beverly Hills. Right? Everyone was the blonde. And so I looked around and thought, well, that narrows it down. Then I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the eye contact thing. I'm going to scan the room. And the person who breaks eye contact, that's the one. And so I looked across the whole room, and no one even noticed me. But then I saw this one woman at the cross at the other end. She looked at me and looked down. And I said, boom. You know? That's what a sniper does. I had her. So I finished my little bottle of water. I took a deep breath, realized that my need for introversion had now just been expired, and I got up and walked across. There was a garbage can right by here, so I just threw my little bottle in the garbage can, and I just turned around and I said, hi, are you? And I said her name, and she said, I'm going to kill Jamar. And she said, yes, we'll call her Whitney. And I'm an atheist. Isn't that a great way to introduce yourself? And I said, hi, I'm Erwin, and I'm a Latin. And then we just started having a conversation together. And she goes, I've been an atheist for 16 years. And she said, in fact, I told Jamar, if God's out there, I wish he'd just give me a sign. And I said, you know, what I've discovered in my life is most of God's signs come in a human vessel. I said, I am your sign. Agile and fearless. And then I looked at her and I said, you know, atheism will suck the color out of your life. And she goes, I know, it already is. And then I said, and as an atheist, do you still have this little voice in your head saying, there is a God, there is a God, there's a God? It just, you don't even know where that voice is coming from. It's just like, it's not like your voice, it's just a voice in your head bugging you all the time. She goes, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I said, I know, that's God. I said, you see, I tell all my friends who are atheists, because it's so hard to understand God, that God is like a parasite in your brain. And he eats away at all your doubt. And he just keeps speaking what you don't want to hear and so desperately need to. And I said, do you like basketball? And she goes, well, kind of. And I said, well, tonight's game 6. You're coming to our house. Jamar's going to pick you up. I didn't even know Jamar was coming. He didn't know he was coming. Agile. And he went and picked her up, brought her to our house. She was with us for game 6. And then this morning when I was telling this story, she was sitting right here. And she confirmed, isn't that beautiful? And she wrote me this beautiful note on a skull envelope. There's a paradox here. It's a black and white skull cover, and underneath, when she wrote, she said, I don't know where this is taking me, but the color is already coming back into my life. See, we are here for a reason. We are here because there are people in this city who will never connect to God if we do not steward our opportunity. Take responsibility to what has been entrusted to us and say, it's easier to be somewhere else, but God, we want to be in the hard place. We want to be in this place where we have to earn the right to be heard. We want to be in this place where people have already walked away from you. We want to be in this place where people think that believing you is ridiculous. We want to be in this place where people have been so wounded they've walked away from you. God, we want to be in this place where they may never know how much you love them unless we're here and now. So we need to be adaptable and fearless, but we also, if we're going to move forward together, need to learn to become loyal and united. Beginning in verse 18, it says, "Then the Spirit came on Amasai, chief of the 30, and he said, 'We are yours, David. We are with you, son of Jesse. Success to you, and success to those who help you, for your God will help you.' So David received them and made them leaders of his raiding parties." And he goes on to say in verse 33, "From Zebulun, experienced soldiers prepared for battle with every type of weapon came to help David with undivided loyalty, and 50,000 of them came. All of these were fighting men who volunteered to serve in the ranks. They came from Hebron fully determined to make David king over all Israel. All the rest of the Israelites were also of one mind to make David king." Now, what I love about this is that the Spirit of God actually came on a person, and they began declaring their allegiance and loyalty to each other. See, you think that if someone was filled with God's Spirit, they would just begin declaring their allegiance and loyalty to God. You'd think he would just say, "God is my only king. God is my king. I'm just about his fame and his glory and his reputation." But in fact, being filled with God's Spirit, Amasai said, "David, I'm with you. I've got your back. I'm fighting your battle. I am committed to your success because I know that God is committed to your success, and we are going to be committed to each other's success." And what I love about what God does is he doesn't just connect us to him, he connects us to each other. See, you know what we have? We have a city filled with people who are not committed to each other's success. We have a city that is defined by narcissism and independence and win-lose mentalities and this cannibalistic mentality that says, everyone else needs to lose so that I can win. And we have to change that mentality here. We must come together as a tribe. We must reinstate the value of loyalty and unity and understand that the great things that we should accomplish can only be accomplished when we do it together. Your success is our success. But sometimes church is seen almost like a supplemental ingredient to our more important lives. And I see people all the time. I don't even know if they know what they're saying. They go, "Oh yeah, I go to Mosaic on Sunday morning, I go to this church on Sunday night, then I go to this church on Wednesday night, this church on Thursday, because I'm just trying to get everything." Like, wow, that's like eating at a buffet every day, every meal, and wondering why you're fat. And they're dying of heart failure. In fact, I saw on Twitter this Chinese restaurant. It was called Buffet Dynasty. But the sign was bent over, so it just said Buffet Nasty. It was hiding the part that was true. You were going to die and if you keep eating there. See, and the great tragedy is that super spiritual people think that what the church is a buffet where you go and eat and eat and eat and take and take and take and get and get and get, rather than a place where you're supposed to be serving the world with a towel wrapped around your waist. See, we'll never accomplish what God has for us to accomplish until we decide that it's all on us. together. It's not on one person or a handful of people to create what this city needs. It is for all of us to do this together. I love how David knew when they came to him with undivided loyalty, he made them the leaders of his revolution. And they came to him not because they were weak and needed David, but because they were strong and David needed them. These were all fighting men who volunteered. And they came with one mind. We have one mind in this city. We want to make Jesus king. We want not the kind of kingdom that men create, of oppression and domination, of command and control. We want a kingdom to reign in the city that is a kingdom of love, a kingdom of forgiveness, a kingdom of grace, a kingdom of freedom. And there's only one king and one kingdom that ever gives that to all of its citizens. I wonder tonight, how many of you have the pattern and practice in your life of taking but not yet giving, of receiving but not yet investing? You will not move toward deep spiritual intimacy with God until you begin to give your life away, not just simply receive into your life. I remember when I was eating one day over at some Chinese place, actually, and I got a phone call on my cell phone, and I was kind of surprised because it was like a pastor from, at that time, I think the largest church in America. And they called me up and said, "Hey, Erwin, we want to talk to you for a minute." I said, "Sure." He said, we really feel like you belong here. We want to ask you to leave Mosaic, leave Los Angeles, come to our church, and you would be the person to create the next generation for our work. And it's like massive facility, incredible landscape. They have a lake. They have, it's like we barely even have bathrooms, but they have a lake, and they had everything. And I said, "Oh, hey, thank you so much. I'm so honored that you would ask me, but no." And no, he goes, no, don't answer right now. I said, "No, it's okay, I can answer right now." "No, don't answer right now. Just take time to pray about it, because that's the spiritual thing to do, right?" And I go, "I don't need to pray about it. I already know. I'm home. LA is my place. Mosaic is my community. I don't have to pray about this." "Oh, no." He goes, "Pray about it." He goes, "I don't need to pray about it." He goes, "That's what I said." I said, "But you were clearly wrong, because you moved, you left, you went." And so, and I know. And he's like, "Well, how do you know?" And I said, "It's like, I don't have to pray about whether I'm going to be married to Kim tomorrow. I made that commitment a long time ago." But there's something else, too. You see, a lot of people see church as a place where you just kind of go in and out. And pastors a lot of times see it as their occupation. It wasn't like that for me. We started Mosaic because we didn't have any place in the world we belonged. Because we had a faith that we knew we weren't supposed to experience alone, but we just didn't fit anywhere. See, the reality is, and I told him, I said, "You think you want me, but the moment I'm there, you'll know you don't." See, I'm really, really attractive from a distance. You don't want me that close. You will fire me in a matter of weeks, I'm telling you, or I will quit or kill myself. Something significant will happen very, very quickly, because the reality is I do not belong in the church. I've had to grapple with this. If I wasn't the pastor of Mosaic, if I didn't belong to this community, would I even go to church anywhere? And the answer is probably, I don't know, probably not. I try, but I would go, and it would be like an act of torment for me, because I just don't belong in the church. The language doesn't make any sense to me. The cliches irritate me. The superficial thinking nauseates me. I'm just telling you the truth. And it's always been a challenge for me, because I gave my life to Jesus, and he made sense to me, but then the moment I connected to the church, none of it made sense to me. But I know that loyalty and unity is critical. And so I spent a lot of my life connected to the church that didn't really resonate with who I was as a human being. And what I love about Mosaic is that we are a declaration of a new way of expressing faith in Jesus. And there are people everywhere who are desperately trying to figure God out, trying to make sense of who God is, trying to figure out even if God is out there. And it just breaks my heart that Jesus, as beautiful as he is, Jesus, as wonderful as he is, Jesus, as essential as he is, feels so irrelevant to the world because of the way he's being translated to the world. See, I want you to know, we're not here because this is all we can do, but we are here because this is the only place I could ever imagine belonging. And there's some of you here, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But if we're going to do this, it can't be piecemeal. It can't be half-hearted. Los Angeles is the most important city in the world. See, when I moved here to LA, before I was ever married, when I talked to Kim about getting married, I said, my non-negotiable is Los Angeles. She's from the mountains of North Carolina. She did not want to move here. I would bring her here, take her to TV shows like The Price is Right, and drive her down to Newport Beach and say, that's sort of LA, and then show her different things. See, because I'm a painfully strategic person. And I looked at the whole world, and I looked at the landscape of human history, and I determined that the future of humanity is Los Angeles. And that there needed to be an expression of faith, a church in Los Angeles that didn't reflect the past or even the present, but pulled humanity into the future. And what we need to do is understand that we have been called into a unique stewardship, and we can't do this with attenders. We have to do this with an army. And then it says in verse 39, the men spent 3 days there with David, eating and drinking, for their families had supplied provisions for them. Also their neighbors from as far away as Issachar, Zebulun, and Naphtali came bringing food on donkeys, camels, mules, and oxen. And there were plentiful supplies of flour, fig cakes, raisin cakes, wine, olive oil, and cattle and sheep. For there was joy in Israel. I love that last line. For there was joy in Israel. It seems kind of odd to write that in because they're about to go to war. And they all come together for a great battle. They come together to make David king. They come together. They know that many of them will lose their lives. But there's joy in Israel. And I love the fact that not only were they agile and fearless, not only were they loyal and united, but they were generous and joyful. They brought everything they had from as far as they had come, and they brought their excess and their abundance, and they shared it with each other, and they created a festival. And they celebrated life together. They came with their camels and donkeys and mules. Wouldn't it be incredible if we just came together at Mosaic? You see everybody coming with their camels, right? They're bringing their oxen. Those are like Volvos, right? They come in, with their donkeys. Those are like Priuses. Because they save gas. And they just bring their abundance because when they brought their weapons, when they brought their swords, when they brought their commitment, they brought everything and didn't leave anything behind. And if we're going to create the future that God has for us, we're going to have to become a community that is generous and joyful. There was one particular tribe that didn't seem to bring a whole lot. They didn't have 50,000 people or 30,000 people or 20,000 people or 10 or 5. In fact, they're kind of an anemic little tribe. They only brought 200. In verse 32, it says, from Issachar, there were men who understood the times and knew what Israel should do. 200 chiefs with all their relatives under their command. See, when I became a follower of Christ, I started reading the Bible, and I stumbled on this verse, the tribe of Issachar. They understood the times, and they knew what to do. And I realized that 200 individuals who understood the times were more important than 50,000 who had swords. You had to have those men and women that God would raise up who understood the moment they were living in, the here and the now, and knew exactly what to do to create the future that God was calling them into. Without those 200 from the tribe of Issachar, David would live in this in-between state from knowing he should be king to becoming king. See, I am convinced that this is Mosaic stewardship. There's not 50,000 here. No 20,000 coming from one tribe or another. We're the tribe of 200 from the tribe of Issachar who understand the times and know what to do. We are those individuals that God is calling together who never quite worked at the frequency of the rest of the church. And we finally found a place where life began to make sense for us together. When I first began this journey, I remember even saying to Kim, I just wanted to create a place where people who want to risk everything and live on the cutting edge of creating the future don't have to do it alone. Because it seems like you have to make a choice. You either belong or you create. But if you create, you end up choosing to never belong. And if you belong, it seems that you abdicate your freedom to create. See, Mosaic is a unique place in the landscape of human community. It is the integration of creativity and spirituality with Jesus right at the center. And we are bringing the message of Jesus to this world at a frequency that those without Jesus can understand. Years ago, I saw this article about the loneliest whale in the world. It's kind of sad. So there's this whale, and scientists cannot find a matching whale for that whale anywhere in the world. It's the only whale of its kind in the world. And so they define it by the closest whale to its kind. It's like a blue whale. But no other blue whale identifies with that whale. See, whales communicate through songs. They communicate through songs, and blue whales, the closest whales to them, communicate at 10 to 40 hertz, and they sing from 10 to 40 hertz. And every other whale that is a blue whale can hear them as they sing in that register. But this one particular whale, they don't even know if the whale is male or female. That one whale sings at 52 hertz. And because it sings at 52 hertz, it cannot hear any whale that's singing at 10 to 40 hertz. It's as if they do not exist. And when he sings at 52 hertz, even if they're passing by in the ocean, nearly touching, they will never hear him, for they are silent to his song. And that's when it was so clear to me why Mosaic is so essential to the world. See, I've always lived at 52 hertz. How about you? See, the way that people explain the world that makes sense to everyone else, it just never made sense to me. The way people talk about God just didn't make sense to me. The way people explain the Bible really did not make sense to me. The standardized answers, the cliches, all the well-packaged understanding of faith and spirituality, it just never registered to me, but I couldn't reject it because it helped so many people. And I would go to all these churches, and they were just jam-packed with thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of people, but the frequency just didn't work for me. And I remember many times walking into churches with Kim when I was just even struggling with my own faith, and I would hear the message, and I would hear the language, and I would tell her, this isn't good for me. This is bad for my soul because it doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel real. It feels like there's something wrong. It feels hollow and empty. And a part of my struggle is I would go to experiences like TED, and I would hear things that resonated with me on an intellectual level, and then I'd go to the church, and it just didn't connect to me in any way. See, the Mosaic exists because there is a world out there of people who are like that lonely whale, who are alone in the world, and they've cried out to God, and they've cried out to God, and it's as if God cannot hear them. And when they've searched, and when they've struggled, when they've tried to make sense of it, even when they've opened themselves up to the message of Christ and to the church, it just didn't connect because it was in this 10 to 40 hertz, and they're like, this isn't real. We are here for the 52 hertz because they come from all over the world to LA, I'm telling you. There are kids who grew up with parents who were wonderful parents, but they were 40 hertz. They had wonderful friends, but they were 35 hertz. They came from beautiful backgrounds, but they were 20 hertz, and they always felt like they were outsiders. They always felt like something was missing, something was wrong with them, something was out of whack. And so they came to this city, and a city that is packed with 52 hertz. But we haven't been communicating Jesus as the church across the world at the frequency that makes sense to them. See, I know it's a curious thing. I meet so many people who work for other churches who bring their unbelieving friends here because they know that a person without God, and they're thoughtful and intelligent, and they want something that's authentic and real, and they're open, and they looked closed, but it wasn't they were closed, it's just they just couldn't hear the frequency. See, I don't care if there's only one person in the world that's at 52 hertz. If there's just one lonely human being traveling this planet wondering if God is out there for them, we're going to exist for them. Whether it's 1 or 10 or 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, we're going to pay the price and take the risks and do the work of singing this song of freedom and love, of life and forgiveness at a frequency where people who would never think they were open to God would suddenly realize that God has spoken to them and find the life that Jesus died on the cross to give them. It was almost 25 years ago when I moved to LA, and I went to an event at the Coliseum. Tens of thousands of people packed the stadium, and one of the most famous preachers in the world got up there and preached. He was one of my heroes. And I was kind of new in my faith, and I just knew I was coming to LA, and I remember sitting in that Coliseum because somebody invited me to go, and so I went. I took this guy he was the son of a pastor who became an atheist by the time he was 23 years old. Well, actually, he said he became an atheist when he was 10, but he didn't know how to tell his dad. And I knew him when he was in his 20s, so he went with me. So we went to this event, and as he was sitting next to me, this incredible pastor, communicator, teacher, preacher, evangelist began sharing the message of Jesus. And I remember thinking this thought: God, what in the world am I doing coming to Los Angeles when you have him? And then as he spoke, I began to weep, even began to sob. I was emotionally overwhelmed. And I'm sure my friend who was an atheist and others thought I was going to give my life to Jesus, but I had already done that a long time before. Actually, I was weeping for a very different reason. I knew as powerful as he was, and as gifted as he was, and as sincere as he was, as relevant as he was to those tens of thousands of people, the way he communicated the Bible, the way he communicated Jesus, the way he communicated the gospel would never reach my friend who was an atheist. It would never reach all my friends that I love so deeply, who are cynical and skeptical and terrified. The truth is, he would have never reached me. And that was the day, almost 25 years ago, when I committed my life and I said, God, I will give my life for that person who needs to hear the message of Jesus in a way that makes sense to them. God, give us a church that expresses community, expresses life in a way that finally makes sense of Jesus to a world that needs him desperately. I don't know if you know this, but we're not really like other churches. And my friends who come who are Christians, they have a really difficult time adjusting here. You kind of have to grow up in our language. You have to grow up in our space. But I figure there are so many great churches for people who already believe. Isn't it time that we create a church for all of our friends who are struggling to believe, who long to find God if he's out there, who desperately need to hear God's voice in their frequency? I wish we could be a church for everyone. But at the very least, we're going to be a church for the 52 hertz. And maybe you're here, and that's you. You're a 52 hertz. You're a lonely whale traveling a huge ocean wondering if anybody's out there. And you've been sending out your frequency, but God just seems to never send a message back. And you've been looking for a sign. Maybe we're your sign. Maybe Mosaic is your sign. Maybe the insane choice we've made to sacrifice of our lives to create a space for you could be just enough proof that God loves you and longs for you to know his love. Maybe tonight is the night to hear Jesus' voice speak into your life and say, Jesus, I give my life to you. I want you to just bow your heads with me just for a moment. If you're here tonight and you've put this off, maybe you've been afraid or apprehensive, but you've not crossed that line of faith and trusted Jesus with your life. Maybe you've been waiting for that 50-second hertz to speak into your soul. And if you're here tonight, you would say, Erwin, I need Jesus in my life. I don't even know how I know, but tonight I know that he's real. And tonight I want to trust him with everything and follow him completely. If that's you tonight, if that's you, I just want you right now, just very quickly, just hold up your hand and say, tonight, I give my life to Jesus. Right now, just hold it up right now. Several just holding up quickly. Just hold it up right now. See, tonight, there's nothing magic in holding up your hand. I just want you to do something physical that reflects what's going on inside of your heart right now. Just hold it up and go, tonight, Jesus, I give my life to you. Beautiful. Beautiful. Anyone else? Just pray this prayer with me right now. Jesus, I give you my life. I need your life in me. I know you died on the cross for me, that you rose from the dead. And tonight, I choose you. I give you my life. I belong to you. Thank you for your love. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Would you just thank God for those who just responded to him now? I have one other commitment I want to ask you to make tonight. It's connected to our theme, here and now. It's connected to this mutual responsibility of taking on this moment in history. I hope you have a sense of the opportunity we have together to make a difference, to write a different future for this city. Los Angeles inhales the world. It can exhale the gospel. It inhales the world. It can exhale forgiveness. It inhales the world. It can exhale love. And this week, when we saw the tragedy in Charleston, South Carolina, when one young man walks in and kills 9 people in a Bible study, we are reminded that the human heart is too fragile to pour hate into it. That the human heart has such potential for darkness when we are absent from God's love and presence. What we're doing is important. What we're doing matters. What we're doing requires faith and risk and sacrifice. I've been really frustrated because where we need to go requires me to step into a level of leadership that I am so uncomfortable with. It's so easy for me to give my life to you. It is. And the great challenge for me and Kim is that we've always worked outside. I've always had businesses. I've always had companies. I've always worked outside. And so we were always able to give to the church and give generously. And for years, we would be the biggest givers in the church. We loved making Mosaic our investment. And those of you who know, about 5 years ago, we had a business upheaval, and we lost millions of dollars. And out of losing all those millions of dollars, I ended up in about $1 million of debt. And I've carried that $1 million of debt for these last 5 years. It's been brutal. It's been a burden. And I just remind myself, you can't be $1 million in debt unless you were a millionaire. And so I see that as the upside. And we've just come to this point now where we were able to put together our assets and sell our house in Whittier. And it's like this beautiful moment where we're like, God, finally, we're going to be able to pay off almost $1 million of debt. I'm so grateful to you, God. And in the middle of that, we realized that the future is going to demand a huge sacrifice from all of us. Financial sacrifice, a life sacrifice. And I got a call from or a text about a church in Guatemala that said, hey, would you like to come and speak at this church in Guatemala? And I thought, I'll go to Guatemala and I'll help all the Guatemala people and, probably some little church in Guatemala. And they said, yeah, they have this amazing 12,000 seat arena that they paid $100 million cash for. And I thought, wow, I'll go to Guatemala to learn how they do what they do so I can come back and learn how to bring Guatemala to, Los Angeles. And then I heard about one of my friends in Orange County who were going to take 10 weeks to raise like $70 million, and they raised it the first day. And I went, yeah, of course they did. That's what God does everywhere else. And then this community in Sydney, Australia, and they raised their annual budget of $20 million in one day, I guess, every year. And I'm like, God, I am so anemic. And in my faith or leadership or something, but I am convinced what we're doing is at least as important as what is happening in those churches. And so I've got to figure out a way to get past my discomfort and call you to join us in giving. So we put together this card, and I got tricked because I just wanted the card to say, I'll pray, because that way I wouldn't have to really ask you for anything. But my son Aaron knew that I wouldn't disown him, so he changed it and turned it into an ask. And it says, I am ready to make an above and beyond pledge today of an amount, and it has a dollar spot. And on Friday night, we invited about 50 of our most committed givers, and we just did it with them. We said, we just want you right now to give, because we're running about, 25% deficit, because we never actually talk to you guys about money. We just go, everybody's poor, everybody does what they can. And to be honest with you, I don't have enough confidence in our generosity, and I have just not expected enough from you. And so as uncomfortable as it makes me, we stepped into this moment. And so we had these cards, and we asked everyone to write down what they would give right away as a pledge to make us agile and flexible so we could do everything God wanted us to do, because it takes money to move with agility into the future. And Kim, my wife, grabbed one of these and filled it out without asking me. You should always talk as a couple. And she filled out the amount without asking me. And then she handed it to me, and when I looked at the amount, I wanted to black out. I looked at it and I thought, yeah, that's more than I would have written. But we have a rule in our family. We go with the highest vision and the highest sacrifice, period. So when she wrote that, I knew, yeah, that's more. So she wins. And then I said, honey, you didn't even talk to me about it. She goes, well, no, we're going to talk about it right now. I said, no, we're not talking. You wrote it in. She goes, well, we don't have to give it. And I said, no, we have to give it. And in my mind, I'm just going to be honest with you. I thought, I'm going to get out of debt in the next couple of weeks. I'll have no debt. It'll be so beautiful. And we'll have a little bit of money maybe we could put in the bank and finally begin again. And maybe I could start another fashion company, or I'm thinking of all these things. And she wrote the amount, and I wasn't going to tell you how much, but some of our leaders said I should tell you, because people are always saying pastors are just about getting your money. And see, the Mosaic's been the opposite. So Kim and I have pledged together to give Mosaic above our tithes, because we are ready to give 10% and above. But we're going to give $100,000 before the end of the year to Mosaic to move us into our future. And I want you to know, this isn't $100,000 out of like $1 million. This is $100,000 out of $100,000 that I would have really enjoyed having in the bank to finally have some breathing room from all the debt we've had for so long. But we're doing it with joy. You know why? Whenever we do that, it makes me bolder. I already called my agent from my publishing company, because I write books. I never say things like this. But I said, you need to call those publishers and tell them somebody's going to make a lot of money on me. So they need to decide which one of them wants me. And so they're like, because I know that as we are more generous, God's going to make us more generative. And so I'm going to ask you to join us tonight. Now, I don't know where you are, but if Mosaic's your tribe, if you're a guest and then you might decide you want to be in. I don't know. I had one of my friends who's an atheist give money this morning. I'm shocked. Because they believe in us. They believe in this. So if you're here, I'm going to ask you a couple things. If you've never established a pattern of giving, start today. Use this pledge card to say, I'm going to begin tithing. I had one couple come up to me and say, we give $1,000 a month. We're just going to start doubling it from now on forever, $2,000 a month. I had one couple come up and say, we're going to triple our tithe. I don't know how much they give. They said we're going to make it 3 times as much. I mean, it could be like $8, and now they're giving $36. I don't know. But whatever it is, they're tripling it. And what I want you to do right now is go, am I an observer, or am I an investor? Am I here to simply experience this, or am I here to create this? Am I here to simply benefit from Mosaic's future, or am I here to create Los Angeles' future with Mosaic? It's up to you, but I want to give you this opportunity. So I want you to use this pledge card tonight, and then tonight when you leave, I want you to do this. I want you to fill it out and just come and put it on top of these 4 speakers. That's what I want you to do. It's like an altar today. Because this is not something you're doing for me, not even something you're doing for Mosaic. It's something you're doing because of what God has done in your life, and you want to do with Mosaic in the lives of others. And so some of you, you're like secret millionaires. No one knows you're rich because you hide it really, really well because you never pay for lunch. And you could match our gift. There's some of you here, you could match 100,000. Some of you here, you just need to take a huge risk in your life and begin to give 1%, 2%, 3%. I don't want to tell you what to give, but I want to challenge you. What I would love to see is everyone here stepping up and helping us create the future together. Okay? All right. The band's going to come, and we're going to sing one last song. And during that song, you can just come and put your pledges here in the front. You can make it as a time of celebration and worship. But it's here and now, guys. It's here and now. It's time to stop waiting for heaven, waiting for tomorrow to come, waiting for something good to happen. Because there's some people who just wait for God to do something good, and some people who decide that it's worth fighting for. And let's be like King David. Instead of waiting for God to give you something, to receive something, realize that what God is calling you to is worth fighting for. And when we fight for it, we sacrifice. So I want to challenge you to take this moment and make it the most important moment in human history. Let this moment in the church be a defining moment where we affect the church across the world. We change the language in the church across the world. We change the way people talk about who Jesus is. We change the way faith is expressed. I am absolutely convinced that what happens here will permeate across the world. And we will leave a generation that's been judgmental and condemning and dogmatic and closed-minded, and we will create a generation that communicates the love of Jesus as an act of creativity and beauty and wonder. It's now. It's now. And it's here. Let's make this the moment. Let's make this the moment where a new future is created and the church becomes what she's supposed to be. God bless.